Hey everybody, welcome back. Now you may or may not know this, but I have read over 18 books on creativity, and the one we're reviewing today is unlike any book that I have reviewed ever. If you're anything like me, creativity oftentimes feels abstract, but at the end of this video, we're gonna give 3 practical examples from the book that I read that describes what it actually means to bring creativity down from the abstract into the real life world through application. That's usually what it means to be practical. We're reviewing HBR's 10 must-reads on creativity. Now, HBR is Harvard Business Review, and they go over 10 articles on a certain topic, and this one just so happens to be pink or purple. I don't know. What do you think? Comment below. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I've read a lot on creativity, but I got so much out of this book. I found it super helpful, and I hope you find it helpful as well. All right, so the first thing I learned from this book, it was brilliant. It's by a lady, her name is Teresa Amabile, and she is a sociologist for different organizations, and she goes in, analyzes them, and she found something about creative individuals that I found fascinating. So the idea that Teresa presents is something called the Intrinsic Motivation Principle. I had to look down at my script to make sure I got that right. But the idea is that people who are intrinsically motivated, not extrinsically motivated, are oftentimes going to be the ones who are the most curious. The idea at its very essence is that creativity flows from curiosity. And the example they give is something called the creativity maze. Now imagine there's an individual who's extrinsically motivated. They want to get through the maze as fast as humanly possible because there's a meal or money on the other side. Whereas you have another individual who's intrinsically motivated. They find mazes fun. They go to a cornfield, they see a maze, they go and they do it just because they enjoy doing it. Now the person who is doing it for the love of it, who is intrinsically motivated, not extrinsically motivated, is going to find better solutions. They're going to have more fun. They're going to be more creative in the way that they go through the maze. Not just someone who optimizes for efficiency, but someone who's genuinely enjoying the idea of going through a maze. And the same is true when you're coming up with new ideas. So for example, for me, I'm only really going to be creative about something if I'm hyper curious about it. So if I'm trying to solve a problem at work, the ones that I'm really interested in, the problems that are just enough challenging that I think I can get through them, but also not so easy that I just forget to do it or I procrastinate to do it because I think it's going to take me 5 seconds. Hello, anybody else with me? But it's that tension of, okay, I'm intrinsically motivated to get this done because the sheer act of doing it, I'm going to find it enjoyable. So that is the first idea, the intrinsic motivation principle, which, to distill it again, is that creativity flows from curiosity. All right, so the next point, I found this point to be so interesting. And I've kind of talked about it before in regards to combinatory play with Albert Einstein, etc. But it's this idea that was presented by Tony McCaffrey and Jim Pearson, and it's called functional fixedness. Now, guys, or gals, this is such a unique idea. The idea of functional fixedness at its very rudimentary level is that we keep things in their functional use. So I'll give you an example of this. A car is used for driving. Insert a photo of a car here, and it's used for driving. Whereas a car could also be used as a shelter. You could take off the panels of a car, you could make armor. You could go inside and take off the fabric on the seats or the leather and make clothing. You could use it to stack up cars to get to a higher level. You could use the tires as flotation devices. It's breaking out of the norm of how we usually view something, i.e. a car or a lamp or cologne or whatever you want to use. Those are just the things right in front of me, so there you have it. And it's breaking it down to its foundational properties. And in doing so, you come up with new creative ways of solving problems. This deviates from like the normal brainstorming, and it changes it to something they call brainswarming. Brainswarming, it's based off of insects that kind of swarm together. It's when you take an idea and then you split it off, and it almost looks like it's a swarm. I guess so. This is one of the methods that they have formed to come up with new creative ways of solving problems just based off of the resources and the goal at hand. So another example they use is the Titanic. So the Titanic went down obviously in 1912, I believe. Daniel from the past, am I correct? Yes, I am. And they pretty much analyze what could have been used on the Titanic to keep people alive. Wood floats, and so the Titanic, there are certain aspects of it that have wood. They could have used that for more flotation devices, or there were a ton of cars on board, like I mentioned earlier. They could have used those tires to make rafts. Anyways, it's pretty much saying that there are a ton of different ways to come up with creative solutions if you break things down from their functional fixedness. So a car is transportation, but a car could also be used in a different manner. So that's one of the ways that they have developed a method of coming up with new creative ideas, and I thought it was brilliant. Brainswarming. Oh my gosh, you know what I'm going to be doing in my next meetings? Hello, somebody watch out. Watch out. Oh my Lanta. So that's the second idea, understanding functional fixedness and breaking it down through brain swarming so that you could come up with better, more creative solutions. Now, the third and final point that we're discussing is actually from none other than yours truly. Oh, not yours truly, that means me. None other than Adam Grant, which I did a review on his book Originals. You can watch that clicking the banner that's popping up right now. But what Adam Grant suggests is that we bring back the suggestion box. Interestingly enough, suggestion boxes used to be used in companies in the early 90s, and they kind of went out of style. But what he says is that you should incentivize people to come up with new ideas, because it's not as though their job depends on it, but it's one of those things that if they're curious and they're intrinsically motivated to point one, then they're going to come up with unique solutions. And I have an example of this, and it's not necessarily from me, it's from my father. So Dad, if you're watching this, hello, please correct me if I'm butchering this story. But he worked at a hospital for a very long time, and one of the initiatives that the hospital rolled out to save money was that if you came up with a solution for the company, for the hospital, to save them money, that you actually got a cut of that. And so my dad, being a smart guy, he started finding ways that they were overspending on toilet paper, on paper towels, and different things, and he would find cheaper alternatives. They had to actually change the rule. I think this is accurate. They had to change the rule because he was actually profiting off of it so much, which is just a huge shout out to him because he's a problem solver. And to Adam Grant's point, what my dad was doing is he was pretty much utilizing their suggestion box. And what you're doing with a suggestion box is that you are leveraging the intellect of an entire organization. You're leveraging the creativity, the idea generation of an entire group of people. And within that, you're able to demonstrate that you can come up with far more ideas. And what we've learned over the past 20 weeks that I've been doing these videos is the more ideas that you generate, the better those ideas are going to be, because it's not so much about crafting the perfect one as it is about generating as many as you possibly can and then distilling it down to the ones that really are going to have the most ramifications for your company, for your own creativity, or for your YouTube videos. Shout out to YouTube videos, am I right? And so if you found this video helpful, I would encourage you, use the comment section as a suggestion box. What are some of the books that you want me to read, or books that I have read that kind of interplay with the Harvard Business Review? I'd love to hear it. I read every single comment. Feel free to drop a suggestion or an idea or anything like that, and I will see you next week for another review on a book on probably creativity, but I'm going to be changing the style here in a bit. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you very soon. Alrighty, catch you later. Alright, how long can I make this outro? Alrighty, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Alright, subscribe. Bye.